Hey there, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement and bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, where I take a concept, a strategy, something that we use in autism fitness programming, and bring it to you so that you can make it workable and meaningful in your fitness or adapted PE programs for your autism and neurodivergent life skill athletes. Before I get started, subscribe, share this video with someone for whom it might make a difference, and a world of difference at that. And it helps our algorithm, helps the channel, helps spread awareness, and more importantly, the best practices in fitness programming for our populations. In this Tuesday training, I'm going to be talking a little bit about learning. Now, back in the day, decades ago, we talked about different learning styles, like someone is more this type of learner, someone is more that type of learner, and that has largely been moved off to the side as we discover more about human cognition and how it works. And even though some people learn some things different than other people, there are, of course, some best practices in the way that we teach certain activities or certain skills. Now, when it comes to exercise, there are definitely some things that we can do that are going to onboard, meaning going to introduce our athletes to the exercise in the best, most appreciable way possible. And there are some things that we want to avoid as well. I will say, and not as a spoiler, but I will say that the easiest way to get things all kinds of mixed up and confused and problematic, both for the athlete and for you as the coach or the instructor, is to overcoach. And it's something that we see and more often hear all the time. In fact, a big part of our coaching of other coaches in autism fitness is to develop a way to not have an over-reliance on verbiage and using too many words to try to convey something. So when we're talking in particular and specifically about introducing and teaching exercise or different exercises to our autism and neurodivergent athletes, one of the things that's really important to consider is that it's easy to overwhelm and it's easy to confuse and not so easy to teach each exercise by using a lot of words. And we can tell this is happening when it becomes a monologue prior to that particular exercise. So it's common to hear something like, okay, you're going to do a band row. So first you're going to set your feet, and then you're going to grab onto the band handles with your hand. You're going to take it with your right hand and then with your left hand. And then you're going to set your shoulders back, and then you're going to keep your chin up, and then you're going to, and the reality is we hear this a lot. The problem with it is, even though we may want to give our athlete each and every last detail that they would need to be successful with that particular exercise, be it a band row or a squat or an overhead press, there is this deluge of information that's coming their way verbally, and they may not have the capability to process all of that information that's being provided auditorily. So they're listening to it, they're trying to process it, and it becomes difficult. And by the way, this is going to be difficult for a neurotypical person as well. Very, very, very few people, neurotypical or neurodivergent, learn exercise or movement best when it is being explained to them. So what is the takeaway for us as coaches, or for you as a coach, as an instructor? It is to use concise, condensed, and highly specific language and follow what we call in autism fitness the label, demo, do, and cue practice. So we label the exercise. So let's do a band row. Then we demonstrate the exercise. So I'll do 5 or 6 or 10 band rows while the athlete observes, and then enable the athlete to perform the exercise to the best that they currently can. More on that later. So by doing this, what we're eliminating is the overcoaching, using way too much language, because we all have things in our head that we want to convey to the athlete. Do this, don't do that. Straighten up this way, tighten your grip, all of those things. But we must understand at every single critical moment that giving too much instruction is actually going to take away not only from the athlete's experience, but from that athlete's performance. There is no way that even if there are 15 or 20 steps that need to be taken in order to start and then complete that set of that particular exercise, we are going to deliver them in a functionally communicative way verbally. So there are other things that we need to do both before and while the athlete is performing the exercise in order to convey these messages and to coach in a way that is going to be truly productive for that athlete. So the first thing here is to eliminate extraneous speech. It is hard. It is a habit that people build up. And it takes practice to kind of collect ourselves and begin relying more on demonstration and giving the athlete active and effective cues during the process of them performing that exercise. So what does that look and sound like? Once we have our athletes started with a particular exercise, they may do it absolutely pristinely, or in many cases with our autism and neurodivergent athletes, because of some of the underlying physiological and even some of the neuromuscular issues and neurological or cognitive issues, they may not be performing the movement to what we refer to as standard. They're able to do it independently with motor control through a full range of motion for every rep, so the exercise is not going to have the greatest possible impact that it can. This is common. And it's not a problem as long as we understand what that baseline performance is and how we need to orient ourselves and utilize these strategies in order to get the athlete at their current best performance. Again, not perfection, but to elevate their capability to where it can be right now. Once we have our athlete performing that exercise, we can make slight adjustments, but again, we don't want to give them a lengthy speech about do this, don't do that, try this, do it correctly. That is absolutely not going to work. But what will work is providing the athlete small, tangible cues along the way. So I might say to an athlete who is beginning to feel out that standing band row or that cable row, okay, feet back 2 steps. And then I may count for them. 1, 2, okay, great position, great feet down. I also want to provide that behavior-specific praise to reinforce what that athlete is doing correctly. Because keep in mind, theory of mind. And theory of mind tells us that someone else may not be thinking what or thinking how we are thinking. So just because it's working in our heads and we have a clear picture or internal video of how the exercise should be performed, it doesn't mean that that's the way that it's showing up in our athlete's head. So we need to understand how they understand as best as we can in order to figure out what is going to work for them. And it doesn't have to be something that is so mysterious. The reality is we can use all of the objective information that we have about what that athlete is doing in order to provide them with the appropriate feedback at the right time. So setting that athlete's feet up, once they have their feet rooted and stable and in the right position and they're far enough away from the anchor point that they can do the band row with good effect, we can say, great standing, great feet rooted down, great position, you're ready to go. We want to reinforce because, again, that athlete doing that exercise for the first or second or even third or fourth time may not have a working knowledge and a kinesthetic or physical awareness of where their body needs to be in order to perform that exercise correctly. So we need to provide that positive feedback for them to say, yes, this is exactly where you need to be right now to do this exercise. So steadily we are shaping the athlete's behavior and performance of that exercise rather than just leaving it up to chance and leaving it up to chaos and saying, oh no, not that way, or over here or over there, and being not only negative, but vague also, and it winds up being complicated and confusing and, quite frankly, frustrating for everybody involved. So being concise, being precise, and being consistent with all of these things is going to lend towards the athlete much more quickly gaining that skill because they know where they need to be, how to perform the exercise correctly, and we can along the way fine-tune it as well. Again, that feedback loop of using behavior-specific praise, we might say when an athlete gets their arms all the way overhead with a press, great extending those arms all the way overhead, super control coming down as well. Again, our athlete at baseline level may not be performing that exercise perfectly, but as they continue to perform it, as we have consistency and continuity, we're building in little blocks. We're scaffolding so that the athlete has a greater awareness, both neuromuscularly and neurologically, of what is going on, where their body is in space, how to perform this exercise, so they're getting a keener awareness of what the exercise is, how it should feel, if they need to adjust their limbs a little bit, if they need to adjust their footing, if they need to adjust their grip. That is a great sign for us because it means, oh, this athlete now has a feel for this particular exercise. Really good. So when we are communicating with an athlete, we want to take the most limited, most direct, and most specific language that we can surrounding the exercise and use that and also be consistent with the name of an exercise. This is another thing that comes up a lot. So a coach will say, oh, we call it a push throw with the medicine ball. Do a push throw. And then the next time the athlete does it, it's do a push pass. And then the next time the athlete does it again, it's, oh, do a chest pass. Call it one thing and one thing only so that the athlete has consistent language around the performance of that particular exercise. So one exercise is not named 2 or 3 different things. It has one name. So the athlete becomes familiar with it. And this, by the way, can build not only their independence with the exercise, but for you speech professionals out there, speech therapists, speech pathologists, think about the lexicon, the new language that this can develop. And one of my favorite partnerships is with speech professionals in building in new language, especially prepositions, in, on, under, left, right, up, down. All of these often abstract concepts that can be built into our fitness programming for our athletes to learn, oh, this is, left versus right is difficult for a lot of our autistic athletes. Why not build it into the program? Not as a main focus, but something that happens with practice from beginning to master these different exercises. So I hope that this has given you a couple ways to think, a little bit of a framework about how we communicate with our athletes, certainly in the beginning, but even as that athlete journey starts to grow and starts to continue. It continues to continue. But as we are building that rapport with the athlete, it's important that the athlete can trust us. And that means using communication that is meaningful and useful to them as well. So we want to avoid overcoaching, use concise and consistent and very specific language for our athletes, cue when we need to cue, fade back when the athlete doesn't need that cue anymore so they can be more independent, and evaluate, is this communication landing? Is it working for this particular athlete? So, observing and taking some data on, is this thing that I'm doing functioning in the way that it needs, or am I just continuing to do it with very limited or no results? Or is the athlete growing more frustrated when I try to explain the exercise to them. That is very common. So I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment below if this has been helpful for you, if it touches on something that's been a familiar challenge or point of frustration when you're integrating fitness or movement programs for your autism and neurodivergent athletes. And if there's a topic you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Tuesday Training, leave that in the comments below also. I'm here to help. I love answering these questions. And of course, if you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro and join the movement for movement worldwide, no better time to do it than now. You can go to autismfitness.com. You can download the Pro Course syllabus, look at how the program works, and once you register, you get direct access to the world's greatest neurodivergent fitness program, along with a full-day practical that you can attend virtually or in person. It's all there for you, and let's go. Anyway, I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training. I almost forgot the name of what this is, even though I've done like 300 of them. And thank you again for watching.